Hello everyone, this is part 5 of What If Naruto Was Trained by the Kyuubi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto age 8. Naruto mental age 10. Unlike the last two villages Naruto visited, Kumo was insanely difficult get to, frankly, because he traveled more vertically than horizontally. The terrain of Lightning Country was basically just a giant mountain range, which caused Naruto quite the problem to traverse. Not only that, but because of the constant clouds, he couldn't use the sky to tell the time nor direction he was heading in. Which is how we find our hero and his fox companion still resting on his shoulder. "We're lost, aren't we, Natsumi-chan?" he grumbled. "This land is a lot more treacherous and confusing than I thought, Naruto-kun. Just bear with it, we'll be at the village soon," she retorted, trying to diffuse the agitation in the boy. "Bah! I hate this country," he shouted with a pout before hearing a loud thunderclap and what he thought was a scream. "Natsumi-chan, did you hear something?" Her head rose from his shoulder, and swiveled a moment. Yay! It was a man screaming by the pitch of the voice. "Go check it out, Naruto-kun. Someone might have fallen off part of the mountain." Naruto nodded and jumped towards the origin of the voice, and thankfully for him the terrain seemed to slice into smoother ridges for more manageable climbing. After a few minutes of chakra-fused traveling, he came upon a rather disturbing sight. "Wah! What the hell is this?" Naruto gaped out at the scene. He stood on a ridge above a large rock clearing he was observing from his standpoint. The area was littered with large, round stones and dirt mounds in front of them with flowers placed upon them. The area seeming to be an unofficial cemetery. There was a small wooden shack beyond the farthest graves, probably for the gravekeeper, he thought. But if that were true, when the next thing he saw wouldn't make much sense. In the middle of the graveyard there was a man crying in both pain and terror, being lowered into a box by a small mob of hooded figures. Naruto watched, needing to know the situation before he went jumping in. His attention was grabbed, a man presumably to be the leader. He wore bandages over his upper body with a vest, along with dark shinobi pants and sandals. Naruto could also see him conversing with the man as the lid was being placed in top of the box. "Rokusuke-san, why are you crying? If nothing else, you should be happy that I'm giving you such a beautiful funeral. Because Kami-sama knows you don't deserve one after deceiving me like you did. So be a man and enjoy your funeral without fear, without regret. Just embrace the darkness and humbly thank me for giving you this gift of a beautiful funeral," he man said in a deep and quite insane voice. H's going to bury that man alive. This guy is totally insane, Naruto thought, before beginning a set of hand seals. "Doten, Tsuchiketa, Earth style, Earth column," Naruto shouted, making 4 pillars of earth shoot out of the ground under the hooded figures, smacking them in the face, easily knocking them all but the leader unconscious by the force of the blow. Naruto quickly jumped down from the ridge and ran towards the scene, grabbing Shinku Kaijin after noticing that the crazed leader had a pair of rather vicious long swords attached to his back. My, what is this, Rokusuke-san? Hiring a shinobi to protect you from me? You really want to live that badly instead of having a beautiful funeral like the one I was giving you?" he man questioned, shaking his head in what appeared to be shame for the man. "Well, it is no use. Once I kill this boy, your death will go on as planned," he finished with a maniacal smile, making Naruto get into the beginning stance of Kitsune Iseiru. "Oh, a kenjutsu fight is it? Well, I'm opposed to using my swords unless a beautiful funeral is guaranteed afterwards, so I'm afraid you haven't earned such a privilege from me, so." He let his sentence hand in the air before doing a set of hand seals. "Raiten, Reikukyabu, lightning style, lightning rage," he yelled before a lightning bolt fell from the ever-present storm clouds above head, striking his body like a lightning rod. The bandaged man pointed his hand at Naruto, who had already begun a set of hand seals for a counter. Naruto was able to finish before the lightning charged at him, which drowned out the name of his jutsu. The lighting seemed to connect with the boy, but the rubble it kicked up caused the man to lose sight of Naruto, which he would learn will. The smoke form the blast cleared a second later, producing a thick layer of stone which jutted up from the ground to protect the boy who was now gone. At least before the man felt a cold steel blade against his teeth. Now unless you plan on using those swords to fight me, I've won, Naruto said in an emotionless voice. Despite Naruto's semi-laid-back behavior with Natsumi, when dealing with an enemy shinobi he pulls no punches and gives no quarter, it was all business. You may have gotten me this time, but you have still yet to prove to me that you earned the right to rest beautifully by my blades. The man retorted, just as emotionless. Then teach me, and when I feel I've learned enough we will fight once more, to the death. Naruto offered, trying to appeal to the insanity in the man obsessed with funerals. He man thought for a few minutes, not even seeming to care that a katana was still against his teeth. If you can promise me that your funeral will be even more beautiful than Rokusuke-san's, I will teach you what I know and will gladly give you a beautiful death by my blade if I deem you worthy of such an honor, of course. He agreed. We have an accord then. Naruto agreed, taking his blade away from the man's end. Considering you have a better corpse, now, let the man go. He requested, making the strange man go into a pondering pose before nodding. Naruto let the man out of the box and told him to go home and forget about what happened, before moving back towards the man again. However, if you show yourself as a failure, I will not only KU, and Rokusuke-san as planned, but his death will no longer be beautiful, he shall suffer as will his family before I slay them in front of him. And my name is Kurosuke Reiga, that is until the day we fight, then you can just call me your executioner. Pressure much? Naruto thought, eyes hardening while looking at the man. I believe in you, Naruto-kun. If I'd have guessed from this fight alone, and you went all out, you'd probably win because you have an elemental advantage by knowing so many futon jutsus which are a strong defense against his Raiten jutsus, Natsumi stated within the seal, since she dispelled herself the moment Naruto used his first jutsu. Arigato for the confidence, Natsumi-chan, but I think this guy is stronger than we both think. When I fight him again I'll need to be more careful, I only caught him off guard this time around, that won't happen a second time. He admitted. Then I'll just have to work you to the bone so you live then, Naruto-kun, she retorted playfully, but lined with an almost taunting sadistic undertone, causing Naruto to shiver. He swore lowly, while actually feeling the evil smile gracing the vixen's lips in the back of his mind. Naruto and Reiga grabbed his henchman and went back to the shack, where Naruto would soon begin his third year of training. 3 months later, Naruto's training had pretty much been gone on as it had for the previous 2 years, although Reiga as a teacher was anything but slay, to put simply. The man was just as insane as Naruto had predicted he was the moment he heard him speak. He didn't teach him a damn thing without going on a rant about all the beautiful funerals H's witnessed in the past. Fortunately for Naruto, the man sure knew his Raiten jutsu, which was the only thing that kept Naruto from killing himself just to make the ranting stop. After the 3rd month, however, Naruto had gained a slight immunity to the man's long-winded stories, until it was time that Reiga finally taught him the next jutsu. Kyuubi sadly didn't know many Raiten jutsus simply because she never liked the finesse the element had on her enemies. It dulls their pain receptors and made them numb, to the point she admitted to him. Still, the ones she did teach the boy were all good ones in Naruto's opinion. So for him his Raiten arsenal was comprised of quality over quantity, which was always welcome in his book. Of course all the other aspects of his training were kept sharp as ever, or were advanced more thanks to his constant usage of his Kagebushin training. Speaking of training, Naruto was currently in his mindscape practicing his taijutsu with a few dozen clones, when a random idea hit him. One that sparked a plan he thought a certain crimson-haired vixen would like. Mindscape. Naruto dodged another punch before roundhouse kicking the attacking Bushin, making it puff out of existence. One more Bushin was left, grabbing a kunai out of its holster and charged the blonde who was currently sweating, breathing heavily, and had bloodstains on his cloths and across his body. Naruto was ready to finish off the last clone as he watched it rush towards him, when he noticed in the background of his eyesight Natsumi watching his battle against a tree. Something in his mind caused his vision to phase the Bushin into Natsumi, who was running towards him with the kunai. Naruto shook his head quickly and his vision returned, noting it was probably just fatigue that caused the vision, before he at the last moment ducked and did a leg sweep and punched the clone through the chest with a puffing sound. He got up and dusted himself off, before he heard clapping coming from a tree. He smiled as he jogged up to Natsumi and playfully bowed like an actor after a great play. Nice job, Naruto, your training is making you quite strong, you should be proud of the steps you have taken in only 3 years, she complimented him with a smile, making him blush slightly. Well, you do have a large part in that, Kyuubi sensei, if you weren't such a great sensei I doubt I'd be as strong as I am. He smiled back, now making her slightly blush at his kind words. I think you'd be a great shinobi whether I was your sensei or not, Naruto. You were pretty much born to be a great ninja. I'm just speeding up the process. But don't let my comments go to your head, you are still far from being the strongest. There are people out there that at your current level could beat you with one hand. She said sternly. Arigato, Kyuubi sensei, and hi, I know. But with your help I know I'll become strong enough to beat them in the future. He said, bowing lightly, before continuing. Ano, was there another jutsu you wished to show me, or shall I continue with my taijutsu? Not tonight, just continue, but make it kenjutsu this time. I want you to practice all the basic stances of Kitsune Iseiru, as well as the 5 offensive attacks associated with it that you've learned so far. She commanded in a regal tone. Hi, Kyuubi sensei. He responded before running off and summoning more shadow clones to train with. He is going to be something this world is not ready for when he gets older. She mused absent-mindedly to herself, before going back to the tree to watch the boy's progress. A few more hours went by, and though Naruto was in the middle of a battle between a dozen Bushins, his mind kept going back to before when his vision blurred Natsume and his clone together. Something about that vision kept poking at the imaginative side of Naruto's consciousness, like it was trying to tell him something but he couldn't translate the scene into words. Damn it, he thought while slicing through a Bushin, what did she say about cage Bushins again? His mind wandered to the night she showed him the jutsu as he continued fighting. Flashback. Single quote. Cage Bushin no jutsu, shadow clone technique, it's quite similar to any other Bushin jutsu. The biggest difference is that these Bushins are solid and can almost be considered their own person because of the flexibility of choice they have. That reason being that cage Bushins are summoned using a piece of the user's own soul, which is why summoning many cage Bushins at once isn't wise. A soul can only be stretched so far, which is one of the 2 limiters of the number cage Bushins the user can ultimately summon. Flashback end. Naruto's eyes widened as her words practically screamed to him the translation of what his vision was trying to tell him. Holy S. He thought as he unceremoniously finished all of his clones in a matter of seconds, before running towards Natsumi full speed, almost making her think he was going to run right into her. Naruto skidded to a stop a few feet from her and bowed low, mumbling something she couldn't hear through his ragged breaths and low head. Naruto, what the hell is going on? She asked, a little freaked out at her student's actions and insubordination. Naruto stood up with a face twisted in shock and almost untamed glee, before speaking again. Go. Gomenkyu. Kyuubi sensei. I just got a new idea for a jutsu and was wondering if it would be okay if I tried it out. He said, catching his breath, and trying his hardest to hold in his excitement. Natsumi eyed her student for a good while, before seeing that he was telling the truth. Granted it was only a half-truth, but she didn't need to know that and gave him permission. Arigato, Kyuubi sensei. I think you're going to love this. He said with a wide smile, making his eyes close, before he phased out of his mind and woke himself up. Oi Naruto, why the hell did you leave? I said you could try your jutsu. She yelled, agitated. I know, Kyuubi sensei, but I have to try it out here, Gomen. He thought back in an apologetic tone. Now, it's like what I do to summon her, only instead of this plane of existence it's inside a cage Bushin. Naruto voiced out his theory, before setting his fingers into the infamous cross hand sign, and closed his eyes in concentration like when he tries to summon Kyuubi for Kuchio's no jutsu. Cage Bushin no jutsu. He shouted as the famous puff of smoke appeared. Naruto eyed the smoke with childlike hope in his eyes, praying that his theory was right. If not, he'd have a very pissed off sensei on his hands. Naruto, just what in the hell has gotten into you? I don't appreciate you summoning me randomly like that, Natsumi continued with her agitated tone. The smoke began to dissipate and Naruto saw what he had hoped to see before he grabbed a mirror and faced it towards the silhouette, with a humongous smile on his face. But, Kyuubi-sensei, I didn't summon you, he retorted in the most sickeningly sweet tone he could muster. Of course you did, Barker, idiot, that's the only way I taught you. She snapped at him before gaping at her reflection in the mirror as the smoke finally ceased to be. What? How? When? Why? You? She questioned if you could even call it that, completely surprised, grabbing the mirror from his hands and touched her face to make sure it was real. Naruto smiled brightly, happy he had accomplished his rather on-the-spot jutsu, but was very happy with the results. Though after a moment he burst out laughing at the reaction his friend was having at the moment. After a good 5 minutes of him laughing and her checking out every detail of herself, they both finally calmed down and took a seat on his bed inside the shack. All right, Naruto-kun, spill it, she commanded with crossed arms and a stern but curious expression. Well, to answer your questions from before, which will help to explain what I did. Hanged, Kage Bushin, I used your soul, about 20 minutes ago, because I thought you'd like another way to be outside of the seal, and yes, me, your lovable student, he said with a laugh, getting a smirk from her. She went into a thinking pose of everything she knew about Kage Bushins and what she told him about them. After a while she got the gist of the idea behind it and actually admitted she never thought to even try that. Okay, so let me get this straight. You concocted this idea on what seemed to be a whim. Decided to use my soul instead of the user's, and hengered the Bushin to look like me. She asked him. Yay, pretty much. Only thing are the finer details, but those don't really matter. He said, a little embarrassed. Natsumi chuckled at the boy, while shaking her head before going back to sensei mode. Naruto, this was a very dangerous idea, though I'm glad you still want to help me with my imprisonment. This could have gone very wrong very quickly if the seal had reacted in a negative way to your summoning me. It could have destroyed one if not both of us. Your Toussaint was a master fuinjutsu user, and I have a feeling that the only reason the seal hasn't reacted so far was because he didn't calculate the existence of a kitsune summoning scroll in his jutsu, nor did he think you or anyone else you knew would ever come up with such a foolish idea like this. She said sternly, making him dip his head in shame for not considering this. However, arigato Naruto-kun, it means a great deal to me that you thought of doing this for me, though silly to attempt as it was. But please, next time you get an idea for a new jutsu, tell me first so I can give you suggestions and advice. I'd like to not lose my friend over a silly thing that like any. She offered with a smile before hugging the boy. He turned and hugged her back with a nod, before they both let go and just sat there in comfortable silence, while Natsumi checked all of the finer details of her new body, mainly being motor functions in case she gets into a fight. After all, she is still a Kage Bushin underneath all that beauty. After a few short minutes, a thought occurred to her as she looked down at herself, when an evil smirk crossed her lips and spoke. Oh, Naruto-kun. She almost sang out. Hi, he answered while nonchalantly turning towards her. How exactly did you happen to get my proportions just right? She questioned with a melodic tone that promised pain if he answered incorrectly, causing the boy's eyes to widen in fear. Well, I did not see that coming, he thought, feeling his palms begin to sweat. I mean you, he stuttered out, trying to form an answer, seeing Natsumi leering at him. We've spent so much time together that it's impossible to not see your proportions. And I just thought you'd want this body to be as close to the real yours as possible, so it's familiar to you. Besides, I'm not even old enough to be perverted like that, he explained after finally calming himself enough to complete full sentences. Natsumi looked at him scrutinizingly just to make him sweat a bit. She knew full well he wasn't of age yet to do those kinds of things, but that didn't mean she couldn't have fun with her friend. She smiled mischievously. I know you aren't, Naruto-kun, it was just funny to see your reaction. Think of it as payback for the worry you caused me before. Besides, I know what happens in your body. I live there after all, she said, as they both laughed at her corny joke. Now then, since you've tested your new jutsu successfully, I want you back in your mind training like I had told you. Kenjutsu with Kitsune Isei Ru, basics and offensive attacks, she ordered in a strict tone before puffing back into the seal, with Naruto going back to sleep following close behind. 3 months later, ironically, what Natsumi had teased Naruto about that night was actually what has haunted him for the last few weeks. Because of his mental training, his mind was developing faster than his body. And Naruto just reached 11 and with it came puberty. Though puberty has to do with hormones being activated and circulated within the body, because his body was still too young, the only thing that the hormones could affect so far were his thoughts. Which after about a week, grew very risque thanks to a certain unearthly beautiful demoness sensei of his. Although Naruto's training regimen had stayed the same aside from his advancements in whatever he or his bushins trained in. The moment the boy stopped, and even sometimes during training both his eyes and his thoughts were consumed by the fiery vixen who just sat and supervised him against a tree. Naruto, for as smart as he at his age, didn't know what to do about his problem. He hadn't had much contact with people who knew this kind of stuff, save for Natsumi. But that was the last person he waited to talk to about it with. Considering that she was the main topic, Naruto knew he loved her as a friend and enjoyed her companionship unfalteringly as she did him, that much of their feelings were publicly known to each other. Plus he already admitted to himself that he found the vixen almost unbearably attractive as well. He knew his feelings began to change and also solidify around her. He knew he was falling for her, the problem was what he should do about it. His logical side told him to just tell her what is happening and how he feels, but he knew it wouldn't be right of him to just say it at his age. Besides, what would he do if she laughed at him, and told him off? Or worse yet, that she was disgusted of the idea of any mortal or him specifically having thoughts about her like that even if they are friends. She was pretty much royalty to demons after all. Or maybe that she would stop training him or stop being his friend altogether, and just stay in her valley never to talk to him again. His heart nearly stopped at this thought, losing her as a companion. He wouldn't be able to live with himself if that happened. His thoughts clashed every day, on him trying to decide what to do about this. And Natsumi, being who she was, God bless her, didn't make it any easier for the boy. What he thought of as friendly hugs between each other before, soon became something his mind thrived on for certain thoughts thanks to the fact that her BS always pressed against his face. There were other times in the past few weeks as well that he recalled which in the past wouldn't bother him at all, but now were excruciating for him to bear witness to and tested his will to the utmost limits. Flashback. Alright Naruto, that's enough for tonight, she called to the current bushin beating boy. He finished off the last bushin and jogged back towards her as always underneath the shade of a tree. Now, she let the sentence hang as she stood up, stretching her body by arching her back, making her kimono to stretch against her front. Causing Naruto to go bug-eyed by a rather nice view of her well-endowed BS which seemed to almost want to pop out of her clothing, as well as give a generous outline of her nicely shaped hips and thighs. Go back into the real world, and you know what to do. I think I'm going to take a nap, seeing you sweat got me tired. She joked with a small laugh, now standing normally. She was about to lay down when she didn't hear anything from. She looked over and noticed him staring into space. Oi, Naruto, did you hear me? She questioned, weirded out by the boy's expression as she waved a hand in front of his face. Ha, oh hi Kyuubi sensei, gomen, sleep well. He said with a flush in his face, before quickly phasing out of his mind. Must be overtraining him. She thought absent-mindedly before laying down and getting some sleep, not thinking much of it. Flashback end. Another example that nearly took him to his breaking point and want to ravish her, though he held back knowing it would ruin everything they had together, also the fact that his body still wasn't quite receptive to his thoughts as much as his mind and imagination wished. Flashback. Naruto had just finished his real-world training and was settling into bed for some well-deserved rest. Wonder what Natsumi-chan is going to have me do. He thought to himself before drifting off to sleep. Naruto woke up in a bed of flowers as he usually did in his renovated mind. He got up and looked to see which tree his sensei was under tonight. Oddly though, he couldn't find her in any of her usual spots. Natsumi-chan, he shouted, thinking maybe she was asleep. He went around the valley shouting for his sensei but got no response, that is until he heard a melodic humming grace his ears. He continued to look for her until he rounded a tree trunk and found her, though never in the sense he would have ever thought. Oh Kami-sama, what did I do to you to deserve such a beautiful nightmare? He thought as his breathing completely stopped. Naruto saw Natsumi in a way he wasn't sure whether to consider a blessing or a curse. She was currently taking a soapless bath in the river that ran through the valley. Luckily for him, though she was facing away from him, so all he was able to see was her flawless shoulders, arms, and down to about her mid-back. She was just standing there humming a soft tune, and caressing handfuls of water on her arms, and back without a care in the world, allowing it to sprinkle down her lightly tanned skin which shined gently in the sun's rays, her motions teasing him like she knew he was there, but pretended not to. Quote. He thought, no words being able to be formed while his eyes just watched every movement of her body, every drop of water that rolled down her skin, taunting him that they were touching her perfect form while he could only watch from a distance. After a few minutes of Naruto's TD bliss, Natsumi turned slightly so Naruto could get a profile view of her. His heart, though still deprived of oxygen, throbbed inside his chest a mile a minute as the boy took the beauty in even more than he had prior. Naruto, despite this being his first time seeing this much of a female, swore that only a few creatures' existence could ever be comparable in beauty to Natsumi. She was still humming, although a different tune now, as she began to caress her stomach and BS, causing Naruto's face to heat up redder than a lobster's. He pulled back, pressing himself against the tree before he could see too much of her glorious assets. Damn it, I'm such a hypocrite, saying I'm not a pervert. But only a few months after I hit puberty, now look at me. He shook his head, ashamed at himself. I'm just glad something inside me pulled me back in time before I saw too much. The only way I can face myself and her is if I admit to what I've done and accept the consequences. He concluded, dipping his head, getting ready to atone for his sin. After a few minutes he regained his composure and ran away from the tree slightly so his plan could work as he hoped. Natsumi-chan, he screamed, making it seem like he was still searching for her. Hi, over here Naruto-kun, she yelled back beyond the tree. He waited half a minute before jogging up to and around the tree he had been previously hiding behind. Once again seeing what half of him wished he hadn't, and the other thanking God he had. He apparently jogged faster than he thought, and when he found her, she was still getting her silver kimono on, though it covered her bottom half. The top part of it was DRD to the sides of her shoulders, not covering an inch of her wonderful BS. His eyes bugged out and he immediately blushed like he had when he caught her the first time. Go. GOMENNASAI Natsumi-chan. He shouted loudly before turning around so fast his and back almost snapped. I'm Sir S. I'm Sir S. I'm Sir S. He kept chanting his mantra, mentally awaiting his death by his beautiful prisoner. And I came to confess what happened too. He screamed, his eyes screwed shut. He is so cute. She thought with a smirk and soft chuckle, watching the poor boy tremble in fear. She finished dressing herself, and began walk towards him, making him stiffen from the footsteps. It's okay Naruto-kun, she whispered into his ear, making him stiff as a board. For you, it's free to watch, but it'll cost you if you want to touch. She cooed seductively, only trying to have fun with him since she knew he knew what she meant. Only problem was that she still had no idea where the boy was mentally in his life, and thought that it was just be a simple joke with him, never realizing what kind of emotional and sexual torment it caused him, since he was somehow able to keep these thoughts from her. Once she finished what she thought was a small taunt, she moved in front of him, taking her sensei stance, and was about to talk when she noticed him. Her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. Naruto, I said it was okay. I'm not going to punish you, so snap out of it, she said sternly with a hand on her hip, noting the boy's still red face and fearful expression. After 3 years of training with her, Naruto got used to listening to Natsumi when she gave an order, no matter the situation, and this time was no different. Hi Kyuubi sensei, go, Gomen, he stuttered, getting a little bit of control back and color to his face. Has been acting rather strange lately, you'll need to keep an eye on him. She thought worriedly. No harm done Naruto, we are friends and you training here so often, it was bound to happen sooner or later. As long as you didn't mean to see me like that, after all you said you aren't a pervert, right? She asked with an accusing look while emphasizing, right, to tease him again, making him blush once more. Ah, right, he lied. She smiled happily. Good, she chirped. Now, you are going to continue to fight you Bushins with jutsu only so you get some battle experience using them. The enemy isn't always going to give you enough time to finish your hand seals at once, so you'll need to learn to be spontaneous and unpredictable so you can summon your jutsu even in the most insurmountable situations. She commanded, before Naruto bowed and was off to begin his training, while the images and words of the red-haired demoness were still freshly ravaging his mind and imagination. FLASKBACK end. Situations such as these, though usually not as extreme, continuously barraged the boy's thoughts while training with the crimson-haired demoness. 3 months later, morning of October 10th. Despite Naruto's lack of attention at times thanks to the continuous sexual assaults to his mind, which he had surprisingly been able to keep secret from his sensei still, he had noticed a change in her behavior over the last few months. Many nights when he trained in his mind, she just stared off into the distance with a forlorn expression on her face. Despite his supportive side screaming at himself to go ask what was wrong and to give her ear to listen if needed, he decided that if she was really worried about something she would confide in him, as she had begun to do more and more after that night a year ago. So for a time he just watched her, making sure nothing was going on with her, while he fought his own inner demons. However, the day of his birthday, he finally snapped when he became deeply injured and she didn't seem to even notice, still just looking forlornly into space, something she never had done before. Mindscape. Naruto was fighting his cage bushins in all forms he had been taught so far. A no-holds-bar battle royal of 100 versus 1. He had been doing well enough, already dispatching half of the clone when one sneaked up on him and espered him though the heart with a kunai. The cage bushins dispersed immediately, knowing he needed a break to rest and get over the pain. Just because he couldn't in his mind, didn't mean the pain was any less real. When he recovered slightly while taking a knee, he expected that Natsumi would be there to tell him to start over since he SD in that simulation, or something to that effect. But when he looked towards her, she was still against a tree looking off into the distance like she had been going for hours now. Naruto's eyebrow twitched slightly in barely suppressed agitation. See the carelessness of his sensei and friend. It's one thing to daydream while I'm doing simple training, it's another to not notice when your student and friend was just espered in the heart, he thought, his annoyance of her behavior finally getting the better of him. He started to walk over towards his teacher, slightly wincing at the pain still etched into his chest. Tonight's the night, and I still don't know what to do, or will do if he hates me for it. Natsumi thought, still gazing towards the mountain's side deep in thought. For all the knowledge that I hold, I'm still unable to figure out what I should do, and I'm running out of time. All I know is that if he rejects me afterwards, I don't think I could handle it, not after everything we've gone through and shared together. That's right, the Kuni no Kitsune, the queen of all Biju, was scared of an almost 9-year-old boy. Why? The answer might be as simple or complex as an answer could be to such a question. But in truth there were 2 reasons, no more like secrets, that she dare not tell Naruto. The first reason being, as unbelievable as it may sound, the vixen had actually the same emotional problem that her young student did. She had fallen for him, as he did her. She didn't know when it happened or how. But she did know the why. It was because of Naruto's personality. He was boisterous but humble when in the presence of those stronger than himself, intelligent yet playful when he was talking with her as a friend, confident but not egotistical like some legendary ninjas tended to become, strong yet still showed his weaknesses to those he trusted, even slightly bloodthirsty yet merciful to his enemies who deserved it. He reminded her so much of her S-mate, though having his own unique Naruto-ish twist to it. As the years went by and the boy grew in all of these aspects, he reminded her more and more of the reasons she once loved her mate. And slowly but surely those same feelings arose and were directed at Naruto, not as a replacement of her old lover, mind you, but as a possible new one in the blonde. The reason Natsumi constantly teased the boy, aside from the sheer fun of it, was out of fear of him finding out somehow. It was a defense mechanism for her to keep the boy at a distance. Also, she admitted her feelings to herself about him. But she knew he was far too physically and mentally young for her, which was the main reason she never hinted at all of her true feelings. Not only that, but she was a demoness, and not just any demoness, the same demoness that basically destroyed his life from the inside out while he lived in that hateful village. She had caused his two-san's death, his Car-san's hatred and abandonment of him, the village citizens and shinobi to spite and eventually physically assault him. What could she possibly hope for him to say to her if she did tell him? I really like you too, Natsumi-chan. No. He'd probably just laugh at her, saying how could he have those kinds of feelings for a demon? Especially a demon that has utterly ruined his life as much as she had. She was utterly torn, despite remembering what he said about being happy with her. But he was her only companion and, more importantly, close friend for the last 3 years. While time to a demon meant nothing, when trapped inside a mortal, time means everything. The fact that she could lose that bond with him in a flash was too much for her to bear. She feared his answer so much so that she decided to never tell him of her feelings. So she simply gritted and bared it when they hugged and felt his touch, or he smiled a genuine smile towards her that warmed her heart, or did something that reminded her of the reasons she fell for him in the first place, causing her stomach to flip-flop with her suppressed affection for him each time. The other dark secret that could also destroy her friendship even without her telling him was the fact that tonight held a very special night for him. Natsumi never told Naruto this because she also feared his answer about this too, something that would literally change him forever. There are few things mortals know about the demon realm or things about demons themselves. This not being one of them. The ancient ability of humans to become Hanyu, or half-breed. Half demon, half human. This marriage of species, if you will, can only occur one of two ways, the first being the more common way, which is that a human and a demon have a child. Said child of course gains both sets of DNA chromosomes from their parents, automatically causing them to be born a Hanyu. The second way is a lot more painful for the Hanyu itself, which is when the human is forced to change into a Hanyu after birth. This change usually only happens with a Jinchuriki, if the Biju is of a higher class, which Natsumi happens to be. Because humans can only contain so much demon chakra before their boss begin to reject it and deteriorate. The solution to this deterioration is simpler said than done. The demon must change its host into a Hanyu so the body can compensate for the rest of the demonic chakra that the body will be fed. Though not as strong as a full demon, Hanyus still have the ability to hold unlimited amounts of demonic chakra without any negative side effects, as well as having the boon of immortality. And this is the dilemma Natsumi currently faced. Naruto was currently at his body's limit. So she needed to change Naruto into a Hanyu so he could absorb the rest of her chakra. The problem is that Naruto had no idea, and she was running out of time to tell and prepare him for it. For her same reasoning as to not tell him about her feelings, she has been afraid to tell him what is his right to know since they first met. She was afraid of his reaction to hearing that he would become part demon. Because if he still harbored ill will towards demons, or just her specifically, and she told him about this, he'd never forgive her because it would just be another fate, which he hated, that was forced upon him much like she was. Damn it. What should I do? She mentally screamed, holding back her tears so Naruto wouldn't suspect anything, that is until she heard his voice cut through her thoughts. Oh, Natsumi-chan. He screamed, looking down at her with an annoyed expression on his face. She looked up at him with a sad expression. Oh Naruto-kun, gomen. She answered in a low, soft voice. Hearing her subdued voice, he immediately berated himself for yelling at her. Natsumi-chan, I tried to ignore your daydreaming for the last few months, thinking that if something was wrong you'd come to me. But tonight I confirmed something really is bothering you because I was just espered through the heart and you didn't even notice. Now what has got you so down in the dumps? Please tell me what is upsetting you so much. He pleaded with a concerned frown. Natsumi just looked at him, not knowing what to do. She had feared he would notice and force her into a corner, but still hoped he wouldn't. She opened her mouth to speak but nothing came out before she closed it. She repeated this a few more times before Naruto sighed. Natsumi-chan, we've been companions for 3 years, and good friends for over a year now. You know you can always tell me what's on your mind I've always been here to listen if something was wrong, so why have you been hesitating to talk to me lately? He asked lowly in a warm and reassuring tone, making her relax slightly. I need to tell him, even if I'm afraid of his reaction. I told him the first day we met that he deserved to know everything about himself if he asked me. And I don't want to be branded a liar now, especially with something that is so important to the rest of his life. He deserves to know, even if I lose him, forever. Her logical side finally won out, and she reluctantly agreed. She lowered her head in shame at her fear and weakness. It's about you. Naruto-kun. She whispered though still heard. He quirked a brow. About me. Well, what about me? For a short time Natsumi's fear held her back from speaking, until a hand on her shoulder and a soft smile from Naruto calmed her and she steeled herself for what would transpire next, that could make or break their relationship. There is something you need to know. She let out a long apprehensive and fearful sigh before continuing. You remember how your two-sand seal allows you to absorb my chakra reserves into your system slowly over time, right? She questioned, getting a confused nod from him. Well, there is something that I've kept from you about this process. She paused, looking back down, not having the courage to keep eye contact any longer. Humans in time have evolved to be able to hold only so much demon chakra in their systems before the body itself begins to rest. Consequently, when humans have a demon sealed in them, and the demon is of superior strength such as myself, the human must undergo a process called sosei, rebirth, which will allow the human's body to compensate for the demon chakra by. She stopped for a moment, letting a single tear fall from her face before she ended her friendship with Naruto. Turning the human into a Hanyu, she finished, almost abandoning her emotional wall and letting herself cry at losing the only friend and companion Shushi's had for the past 9 years. Naruto was speechless at the revelation that Natsumi just shared with him. He just started at his downcast friend in silence. So, you're telling me that because of having you sealed in me, I'm eventually going to turn part demon just like you, and I don't even have a choice? He asked in an accusing tone, only getting a silent nod from the nearly tremoring vixen. A good 5 minutes of complete silence filled the area. Only the sound of the billowing winds was heard. Natsumi herself thought that Naruto had simply left his mind and, more importantly, her without another word. And she was far too scared to look up and learn the truth. All right. His happy voice faintly resounded in her ear. For a few seconds nothing registered to the woman still sitting on the ground. Then the answer finally seemed to click before she finally had the courage to look where Naruto was still standing with a large smile plastered on his face. What was the intellectual sentence she asked him? He snickered lightly, as his smile to grow even bigger. I said all right Nat, Chan. He retorted again, saying her name in a slow, playful tone, but seeing her face in confusion, however, he realized he'd have to explain. For being a millennia-old demoness, you really are thick when it comes to relationships you have with people, you know that? He asked with a small chuckle before continuing. What I mean is, ever since I met you, when have I ever seriously badmouthed demons or you for being 1 hectometer? He paused to give her a moment to think. None. And why? It's simple, because in my eyes you've shown me that demons are given a bad rap with how humans stereotype them as being bloodthirsty beasts who only want chaos and anarchy to reign. You've shown me that demons are a lot different and complex than that. You've shown me that demons can be more kind-hearted than even humans can sometimes be. And honestly, if it was my choice to turn into a Hanyu, I would still say yes, because I don't think it would be so bad. Besides, then I'd still be able to be there for you like I want to. He finished with another smile. Natsumi was blown away by Naruto's long answer, and truth be told, she was speechless. She felt both complete joy and shame at the same time. Joy that Naruto not only didn't reject her for what was going to happen to him because of her presence in him, but he was actually okay with becoming a Hanyu. At the same time, she was ashamed with herself for having such little faith in both Naruto and the strength of their bond together. However, her joy soon reached critical mass and she couldn't help but tackle the boy to the ground in a death-GS hug. Had both their emotions been more stable at the time, they would have noticed the rather intimate position they were in on the ground. She was lying on top of him, straddling his legs, with her arms wrapped around his neck and her face buried in his chest. His own arms wrapped around her waist. Go. Gomenasai Naruto-kun. She muffled against his shirt, finally letting her tears flow. I should have had more faith in you, and us, Gomenasai. She cried, drenching his shirt. Naruto was rather shocked over her reaction, but once he calmed down, he moved one hand to her head and the other to her back and began to slowly massage the emotional woman, while cooing soothing words to her. After a long time, she finally calmed down but refused to get off him, afraid he might still leave if she let go, causing him to chuckle at her childish clinginess. Let me guess, Natsumi-chan, you thought that I still harbored ill will towards you over what happened in Konoha because of your sealing in me. And that I'd resent you even more for turning me into a demon just like yourself, Ne? He asked, though never received an answer from her, making him smirk for hitting the nail on the head. I already told you, bonehead, I can't and won't blame you for attacking the village. What happened to me afterwards couldn't be helped thanks to the village's fear and hatred and loss. You should give me more credit then that you know. And besides, if I were to ever have left you, I probably would have done it after our first meeting, but I'm still here. He left the statement hang before leaning right next to her ear, making them twitch from his hot breath, and I'm still happy. He finished in an almost inaudible whisper, seeming to only want her to hear even though they had no accent, before giving her a chaste kiss on her temple. She lifted her head from his shirt to look into his understanding gaze. He really means it. He really doesn't hate me for all that's happened to him because of me. And he would choose to become a Hanyu too. Gomen, I've really underestimated you, Naruto-kun. She thought, finally getting a hold of her emotions, allowing a smile to grace her lips. If only you were older, Naruto-kun. She couldn't help but think, fighting back the urge to move those last few inches and lay a kiss his soft lips. After several moments passed, the pair finally realized the position they were in and quickly released the lovers' embrace in embarrassment, neither knowing of the other's blush, before soon calming down and sitting next to each other against the tree. Ano, Natsumi-chan, he paused before gulping. What exactly is going to happen to me? He asked worriedly. Her smile soon faded with the re-emergence of the fearful topic, though now at least causing a lot less tenseness inside the vixen. I can only tell you the generic details, I'm afraid, Naruto-kun. Each sosei is different because of the variety of demons that exist and the unique human aspect as well. Once sosei is complete, the human will still look mostly humanoid, but with characteristics that are unique to the demon involved. Much like the whisker marks you have because of my ceiling. This is where my demon limit I told you about comes into play for you. She explained, before striking a rather cute thinking pose with her pointer finger on top of her chin. Another thing I know is that you will become immortal like myself or any other demon. However, don't think that immortal means you will never s. This form of immortality stops the passage of time for the physical body, nothing else, meaning you will never s no matter how old your body may get, hence why I still look so good. She said, doing a playful C pose for him, causing them both to laugh and ease the tension in the air. After that, I don't really know much. It will be a surprise for us both tonight, I'm afraid. She finished, her smile dimming slightly at not giving him more of a reassurance. Wait, tonight? What do you mean tonight? He asked apprehensively, before the truth hit him when seeing her lower her head in guilt. Damn. My sosei is happening tonight, isn't it? He asked with a sigh. Well, it can't be helped, I suppose. Not like I had a choice in the matter anyway, so why should I be able to pick when it happens? I could have used a bit more warning though, Natsumi-chan. He playfully scolded her, though immediately regretting it seeing her frown. Gee. Gomen, Natsumi-chan, I was only kidding, but, Ano, will it hurt it a lot? He questioned, realizing that transformations like more than likely tend to hurt since they change the way the body itself functions. Natsumi lowered her head even more, afraid Naruto will still be mad at her, but slightly nodding to him nonetheless. He frowned from her answer, though not being surprised by it, before he moved closer to her and grabbed one of her hands that laid on her lap into his own. Ano, Natsumi-chan, is it maybe possible to have you stay with me while I change? I'd really appreciate it if you helped me through it by being by my side. He asked lowly. She looked back at the boy sitting close to her, a small smile growing on her face, touched that even after all she had done to him, he still wanted her by his side. She squeezed his hand that enveloped hers reassuringly, making him look at her still with a flush on his cheeks. I will always be here to support you, Naruto-kun, as long as you want me to. She answered in a confident but soft voice. He smiled appreciatively. Arigato, Natsumi-chan. He squeezed her hand back gently. They stayed in that posture for a while, just seeming to be hypnotized by the other and their surroundings. Neither realizing that the other was thinking the exact same thing that they were, while smiling happy at the thought, maybe there is a chance for us yet. Lamentably, the pair had to let go of each other to prepare the necessary rites and seals for Naruto's sosei ritual. October 10th, 11:55 p.m. The pair had worked tirelessly throughout the morning, noon, and night to prepare for Naruto's sosei. Naruto's bedroom in Reiga's shack was filled to the brim with demonic seals and incantations. Naruto himself was in the middle of the room lying on his back in the middle of a large pentagram seal in nothing but his underwear, giving Natsumi ample time to COO out, catcalls, towards the boy, making his entire body burn red in embarrassment. With Natsumi right by his side holding his hand, they waited for the stroke of midnight, which would signify the start of his sosei. Arigato again, Natsumi-chan, he whispered out a bit haggardly. Both he and Natsushimi knew he was scared at what would happen to him after this, but he tried his best not to show it. After everything we've been through and you still being my friend and companion after it all, it should be obvious that I would be here for you, especially since you asked me in such a cute way, she retorted with a teasing smile, making him smile back, cutting the tension in the room a bit. An unearthly silence suddenly entered the room after she spoke for a brief second before Naruto's watch beeped, and his smile immediately turned into a pain-filled grimace. His sosei had begun, and from that point on Natsumi could do nothing but pray for the screaming boy in front of her. She knew the process was very painful, and being in a shack and not alone, she set up one of the Onopo jutsus she had taught him called Otofugen Shoheki no Jutsu, sound silencing barrier technique, around the room to not alert Reiga of the ritual. Please be alright, Naruto-kun, she mentally prayed, barely able to stand seeing the pain contort across his body and face. The process was slow and agonizing, each seal written in the room, slowly moving onto Naruto's body, making his skin feel like it was on fire as it moved to its proper alignment. After hours of unbridled pain, the last of the seals finally moved in place, before they all meshed together at the center of his chest and formed the same pentagram seal that he was lying on, only a smaller version. For a moment his screams subsided and there was an air of quietness. Natsumi knew the process wasn't finished, but she needed to let Naruto know she was still here for him, and quickly moved back to his side, squeezing his hand, kissed his cheek and whispered words of praise and encouragement to him. Sadly their reunion would have to wait, because when she leaned back the rest of his sosei ritual commenced, signaled by a transparent purple beam shooting through the pentagram seal on his chest and into the ceiling. And so his almost animalistic screams continued on throughout the night, hurting the ears but more importantly the heart of the only being he trusted with his life, the Kyuubi no Kitsune. The tormented screams of the boy seemed endless to Natsumi. However, truth be told, she was completely fascinated by what was happening to him. After the beam skewered him, an almost agonizingly slow purple flame began to engulf his entire body. After many more hours, the flames finally reached the bottom of his toes and the very tips of his blonde hair before they extended outward, engulfing the entire room in a blinding flash of purple. The force of the flame caused Natsumi to be thrown against the wall and luckily land on Naruto's bed, but she was completely blind from the light. Soon the flames retracted back towards the large seal on the floor, leaving a standing-up humanoid silhouette in its wake. Natsumi rubbed her eyes, trying to get those damn circles out of her vision before looking at what transpired with Naruto after realizing his sosei was finally complete. What she saw wasn't anything close to what she expected, but certainly wasn't complaining at the view. H's gorgeous, she thought, absent-mindedly licking her lips as she took the new form of her friend in, though her current thoughts were nothing of the friendly variety. What stood before her was a half-30-ish-year-old version of the Naruto that she knew. Only hot, really hot. New muscles adorned his athletic frame, which twitched at the cold air that now hit them. His hair had turned from blonde to a dark orange, while his eyes now shone with a brilliant shade of amethyst with black SS running down them like her own. His teeth, and both hand and toenails, were elongated into fangs and claws, while his usually small whisker marks also became more pronounced, giving him an even more feral look than he already had. The last changes were the orange and white fox ears that adorned his head, as well as two orange and white fox tails swinging gently behind him. Naruto himself felt like he was born anew, though technically he was considering he was a Hanyu now. He tried to figure out all of the new nuances that came to him, which he noticed almost immediately. All of his senses were heightened to and past animalistic levels. He could hear Reiga's heart beating in the other room, he could see clearly through the window at the mountains which were almost 100 yards away. The air felt like soft silk as it made contact with his skin, and his nose smelled the old wood that this shack was made out of. He also smelled something odd about the room. It was a very pleasant, almost heavenly smell, but something he couldn't recognize. He let his nose carry him to its source, which directed him to Natsumi, who was still staring at him, with a look he had never seen on her face before, but decided it definitely looked good on her. His mind finally clicked back to normal, and looked at his friend uncomfortably. Anno, so how am I? Do I have horns or anything? Do I look okay, or normal? He asked in a much deeper voice than he once had, a little afraid of her answer. There wasn't a mirror around, so he could only see so much of himself, making him trust his friend to tell him the truth about any new looks. Unfortunately, Natsumi was in her own little perverted world at the moment, while still looking at the new Naruto that stood before her. Christmas came early this year, or whatever it is they say. She thought with a hungry leer. Natsumi-chan. He raised his voice, not getting a response the first time, but this time getting the desired result. Kami-sama, even his voice has gotten C. She thought, trying her best to remember exactly who she was ogling at like a horny schoolgirl. Gee. Gomen Naruto-kun. She stuttered out with a blush, trying not to let her voice give away the inner conflict she was having. Sue. She smiled shyly while rubbing the back of her head. Anno, what was the question again? She asked sheepishly, making his eyebrow perch at her inattentiveness. Naruto thought she was ignoring the question because something was wrong and she just didn't have the heart to tell him. So he checked himself out, quickly noting his new body's appearance, as well as that his underwear was straining to its utmost limits just to stay on him, causing a rather large bulge in him even though he wasn't excited. He looked back at his friend, and when seeing her face again it finally clicked. Guess my Sosei did more than I thought. Can't blame her though, she hasn't seen a male this close to N in almost 9 years, he thought, while mentally laughing at the situation, before smirking and deciding to tease her a bit. Natsumi-chan, he said in the most husky voice he could muster, making her ears perk up. Do you like what you see? Or can I get some pants on? He finished in a playful tone, leering at her lack of attention, or could it be over-attention? For a good 10 seconds she just continued on with her staring, before his question sunk in and she snapped out of her erotic stupor, and blushed, throwing him a pair of pants. Gomen Naruto-kun. She spoke out shyly, not being able to look at her friend without ravaging him. It's fine, though I'll take it you approve of my changes and nothing seems overly wrong with me. He asked, smirking that her blush had slightly deepened when she nodded lightly. Though for what I've already noticed, that pain was worth it. I feel great, and my senses are through the roof. He decided to explain all of his new abilities that he noticed so far to her, which included what he had smelled coming off her, causing her to blush once more. He can smell me now. I need to keep myself in check, but I mean Kami-sama, just look at him. She thought, knowing it would be easier said than done to keep her mind out of the gutter, since she'll be with him as both his sensei and friend. Once her blushing fit ended, she explained all of the physical changes that he couldn't yet see, but decided on making him look himself. Got a mirror from the shack's bathroom. Naruto was shocked at first, especially with the tails and ears. But overall liked his new look. He liked the feralness he exuded. It might cause unwanted attention if people saw him, but it would also keep people away from him too, so it was a double-edged sword in that sense. Natsumi suggested that he keep his real appearance a secret, because people don't exactly take kindly to Hanias and demons, so keeping a low profile and a normal look was probably best. Taking the suggestion of using the Onepo Henge Jutsu he had finally been able to master, since it could hide his real looks from anyone without Dujutsu, certain Kekkei Genkai, or demons, he made himself look like how he had before the ritual began. Despite how much Naruto wanted to test out his new form, Natsumi suggested that he let his body get some rest before doing any real-world training. He begrudgingly agreed and got some rest. Natsumi had cancelled his mental training for the night as well, giving his mind time to rest too. 3 months later. 3 months had passed since the day of Naruto's Sosei, making it a full year since he entered the Lightning Country and his training with Reiga began. Since that day Naruto's training had skyrocketed because of his new body. Through his training Naruto realized that his new matured body increased almost every one of his physical attributes. His natural strength increased, now being able to make a house-sized crater with either fist or leg with no chakra needed. His chakra reserves didn't grow larger themselves, but the chakra itself moved more smoothly inside of his enlarged coils, which allowed Naruto to gain advancement in his chakra control, allowing him to be able to cast his jutsus faster, and with less resistance. His new body gave his stealth abilities a rather large boost since he could mask his chakra a lot better now thanks to his newly acquired control. Having such a large supply was hard to mask even with the Kyuubi no Kitsune as your sensei. The last thing he figured out was that his natural speed greatly increased to high Junin levels, and during one of his training sessions thought he had actually used his Namikaze Kekkei Genkai Jutsu accidentally. Natsumi confirmed that it was merely his natural speed, not but Kekkei Genkai, but suggested that he finally open the second scroll that Sarutobi had given him, thinking maybe one of the scrolls would tell him something about it so he might begin to learn it. Flashback. Naruto and Natsumi went back into the shack and searched his bedroom for his backpack with the 3 scrolls addressed to him. He grabbed the second unopened one, sneering at the one he read 3 years ago addressed from his mother. With an apprehensive sigh he opened the seal with a spot of blood and began to read. Hello Sochi. I'm sure you're probably wondering why your Car-san or Hokage gave you this scroll and box out of nowhere after you just graduated as a Konoha Chunin NE. Well, the reason is simple. I wanted to have a few words with you man to man, haha, though I know it's a letter but bear with me NE. Closing parenthesis. First I just wanted to say how proud of you I am. I know you are a strong shinobi by now and will be destined for great things. But I don't want you to let your success go to your head either. Enjoy the spotlight but stay true to yourself and the teachings of the shinobi way. Always remember that to be truly strong a shinobi always fights to protect their precious people. Not for fame nor glory. Well, that's enough of the academy drama morals. I know you will become a legend in your own generation, so I just thought you should learn your Tusan signature moves and make them yours. If you haven't already be told, my Kekkei Genkai is my body's ability to travel at supersonic speeds without any negative side effects, allowing my clansmen to utilize the Hiraishin no Jutsu. Gomenasai my Sochi, for not being around to teach you how to use it myself. But that box I left you has both a scroll of instructions and a special kunai that will help you to learn it. My advice is to let yourself go when you feel the pull. You'll understand this when you begin to successfully learn it. The second jutsu is the Rasengan. Thankfully Sarutobi-sama, your Car-san or your Kyufu, godfather, Jiraiya know how the technique works and can teach you the steps to learn it. And if you want you could try to find your wayward Kyubo, godmother, Tsunade for some medical training too. Now, I have a request my Sochi, as your S2-san's last wish. Take care of your Car-san and the rest of the clan. I know she can be hot-headed at times, but always know she and all of them love you unconditionally. When you go on higher-ranking missions try to be careful too. I honestly don't know how devastated Kushina-chan would be if something serious ever happened to you. When I saw her last holding you as a baby, she had so much love for you in her eyes, the same love I know she still has for you. Onagai, please, just take care of her, and most of all yourself for both your sakes. Always remember that I will be watching you and your Car-san. I love you my Sochi, I'm so proud of you. Love your Two-san. Namikaze Minato. After reading the letter Naruto didn't quite know how to react. Happy that he has something that his father wrote. Or filled with rage on just how false his words about his Kushina, the Uzumaki clan, and his apparent godfather Jiraiya had been. Natsumi embraced him, while telling him everything would be alright, helping to calm him down greatly. After getting his emotions in check, he opened the wooden box, took out the scroll and unfurled it when a 3-pronged kunai dropped to the ground. Naruto took it and read the paper, which were the steps to the Hiraishin. He put the letter back inside his bag and went outside to practice his father's infamous jutsu that made him a shinobi legend. Flashback end. Since then Naruto had dedicated over half his training to learning the Hiraishin. However, even with hundreds shadow clones at his disposal, only a minimal amount of success was given to him on mastering it. On the aspect of other jutsus that he was shown by Reiga and Natsumi. Naruto was still a genius on catching the tricks to them and mastering them with ease. Finally the day came when Reiga had taught Naruto the last jutsu he knew, before declaring that it was time for their duel. Naruto had grown respect for the insane man, and adamantly declined on wanting to fight him again. which only made Reiga laugh and remind him of the consequences if he didn't, causing Naruto's hands to be tied and submit to the duel. Makeshift duel arena. The two men faced off with their swords drawn. Reiga knew to not underestimate Naruto this time around. He had seen his progress and knew that if he wanted the fight to last more than 5 minutes he'd need to use his swords. I still don't know what happened to you, Arashi, but I hope you aren't thinking that your appearance is going to scare me into backing down. Reiga said with a smile. He had been waiting for this fight for a long time, and seeing Naruto's true form now for the first time only made him that much more excited to fight him. I don't, Reiga-san, and explaining what happened now won't matter since one of us is going to be S anyway. Naruto retorted, getting into the beginning stages of Kitsune Iseru. The two stood there not moving a single muscle for almost 10 minutes, until a lightning bolt scorched the ground in the middle of the two, almost making it seem like the gods themselves began the duel. The two suddenly disappeared, as steel clashed against steel viciously across the arena, the ground only after a minute already looking like a war zone. Uprising rock and stone was everywhere as each clash caused more of the ground to change. Natsumi was easily keeping up with the battle, noting that it seemed to be AS lock. Naruto was faster than Reiga, but Reiga was dual-wielding so he was able to make up for the difference in speed in his superior amount of weaponry. This won't be decided by Kenjutsu alone, they are too evenly matched, she thought while enjoying Naruto's first official shinobi fight. The two were caught in a power struggle while their swords clashed for dominance against one another. However, Reiga just smirked before twisting his right sword to hook onto Shinku Kaijin and was able to pry it out of Naruto's hands, sending it several yards away. Naruto was able to jump back from AS of Reiga's blade that would have ended his life. As he flew back from the attack he began a set of hand seals while flipping through the air. Futon, Daytopper, wind style, great breakthrough, he shouted as he released a breath of air magnified by his chakra. The great wind pushed Reiga back, nearly losing his balance until he lodged his swords into the earth to slice himself. The only problem with that is he was now defenseless against Naruto unless he released his swords. Of course that was Naruto's plan and was already about ready to call out his next jutsu. Doton, Doryu Tiger, Earth Style, Earth Flow River. He called out as the ground around Reiga became mud, and mixed with the still billowing winds, forced the swordsman to lose his civilization form, his swords as they sunk into the soft ground. Reiga was almost too preoccupied with the mud when at the last minute noticed a bubbling in the mud at the beginning on the river, before hearing yet another jutsu. Doton, Doryuden, Earth Style, Earth Dragon Missile. From the mud arose the head of a dragon which then opened its maw and shot missiles of mud and rock right at him. Reiga had little time to react, but he was successfully able to get his swords out of the mud river and clashed them together in front of him in a defensive position before calling out his first jutsu. Raiten, Reiku no Tate, Lightning Style, Lightning Shield. His swords acted as a slicer for his chakra and created a lightning elemental shield in front of him which deflected the mud missiles that came at him. Once Reiga stopped feeling the impacts of the missiles against his shield, he lowered his still crackling swords and swung them a double horizontal arc, releasing the pent-up electricity as he yelled out another jutsu. Raiten, Reiku Nami no Jutsu, Lightning Style, Lightning Wave Technique. The lightning chakra exploded past the mounds of mud that collected from Naruto's Doryuden, and raced towards Naruto. The explosion easily gave Naruto enough time to evade by jumping into the air towards Reiga while hand-sealing for another jutsu. He was caught off guard, however, when he noticed Reiga was ready for him, with a large lightning ball sitting at the tips of his touching swords above his head. Raiten, Reikyu, Lightning Style, Lightning Ball. Reiga shouted, pulling his swords in a downward arc, releasing his jutsu with sly accuracy towards the orange-haired Hanyu. Naruto cursed, before the ball hit him square in the chest. Reiga smirked slightly as the ball made direct contact with his target. That is until Naruto puffed out of existence, leaving the lightning ball to fly into the clouds. Kage Bushin, a voice called out behind the mud-ridden man. Reiga chuckled loudly. I should have figured that, with all the times you've used it to train. He answered while freeing himself from the mud. Enough talking. Naruto's voice was once again devoid of emotion, as he went through a series of seals. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Suddenly 9 Narutos popped into existence in a line before they all began more hand seals. Reiga, you better not miss. All of them taunted simultaneously. Reiga grew agitated by the man's taunt, and took a moment to select his target. He did so and sent another, Reikyu, towards one of the clones. Before it struck though, Naruto was able to complete his jutsu. Suten, Sushoa, water collision destruction. He shouted, as a column of water emerged out of nowhere and shot at Reiga, who was completely shocked at what Naruto had just done. He just used a Suten jutsu without any water. Just who is this guy and what has he been doing for training for the last year? Reiga thought as he was hit in his right shoulder by the blast of water, causing him to lose that sword in that arm. Although both of their attacks had hit, neither of them were as direct as they hoped. Reiga had actually hit the wrong clone, but the real Naruto was standing next to it, so the lightning ball had still damaged him somewhat. Which is why Naruto's jutsu only grazed Reiga's shoulder. Pretty impressive, Arashi. You must have trained hard this past year. Your funeral will certainly be a beautiful one. Reiga commented before running to get his lost sword, as Naruto did the same. They each re-equipped themselves once more with their respective weapons, and began another bout of kenjutsu. But were proven again to still be evenly matched despite lack of chakra and damage they had sustained. Reiga jumped back and began to twist his swords in a circle in front of him. Lightning bolts began to hit the spinning blades, and after enough momentum and lightning were caught in the blades, Reiga thrust the swords towards the sky and called his next jutsu. Raiten, Reigeki no Yoroi, lightning style, lightning strike armor. He called out as his body became encased in what appeared to be a never-ending lightning bolt. Damn, this guy will be a lot more talented than I thought he would be even with my training. But he isn't one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist, for nothing. Naruto thought a little excited about how the fight was turning out. Naruto didn't have much time to summon another jutsu before Reiga began to spin in place, his sword still outstretched. Naruto ran towards him, seeing his opponent now open, though sadly didn't make it in time before Reiga called out yet another jutsu. Raiten, Ryoryu no Tatsumaki, lightning style, lightning dragon tornado. He shouted as a giant tornado came to life from his body, which then took a shape of a ravenous dragon, with its eye surrounding Reiga protectively. Naruto stopped and looked at the jutsu, rather impressed by it, before he called upon 24 shadow clones and ordered them to attack Reiga. Unfortunately, the clones were quickly wiped out by the dragon, before it steered towards the real Naruto, wanting to give him that beautiful funeral its summoner promised. Naruto managed to run out of the way as the dragon slid into the ground, sending shards of rock everywhere. Though the attack had missed, the rock shards had caused several deep cuts into Naruto's retreating form. Damn, that jutsu combination is impressive. He has his dragon on the offensive, and that lightning armor for what I'll assume is defensive. No matter what I do to get to him, it won't leave me without being hit by either one of those jutsu. Though now's as good a time as any to try out one of my favorite offensive, Kitsune Ise-Ru, techniques. Naruto thought as he landed a safe distance away and summoned a dozen shadow clones that completely surrounded Reiga's spinning form. Each clone grabbed 3 shuriken between each finger, and launched them at the eye of the tornado where Reiga still stood. Does he honestly think those weapons will make it to me? He isn't that much of an idiot. What is he planning? Reiga mentally questioned at seeing Naruto's actions, but not taking any chances commanded the dragon to wrap itself around him as a barrier. As soon as he did this, all 12 Narutos smirked, before making one more hand seal. Ninpu, Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Ninja Art, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. They shouted in unison as the shuriken multiplied in midair, to reach almost 900 in number, all aimed at Reiga. TSH, if he thinks he'll win by numbers alone, he is underestimating me. Once I finished with these annoying weapons, I'll take out those clones and him. Reiga growled out to himself, as the shuriken embedded themselves into his dragon, which halted their advances. That is until one of the shuriken that was in front of him puffed, and out of the smoke arose a rather angry-looking Naruto with Shinku Kaijin held in position for his offensive technique, which Natsumi recognized immediately. Not too shabby, Naruto-kun. She mentally complimented her student and friend, while continuing to watch with great revelry. Gomen to disappoint Reiga-san, but I have too many things still to do to here. Naruto shouted, as Shinku Kaijin began to glow and hum with energy. Though Naruto had the upper hand with his surprise attack, it didn't mean he wasn't out of the woods yet. He still had to dish out the final blow, so if his momentum slowed even for an instant, his efforts would be for naught and he would lose. Raiga's dragon, despite Naruto's continuous charge, was doing a great amount of damage to him, apparent by his clothing beginning to scorch and his skin burning everywhere that the dragon's lightning touched. Raiga's eyes widened in surprise as his teeth clenched in aggravation at seeing Naruto's approach. There is nothing I can do. I'm holding back his shuriken with the dragon, so if I stop using it I'll be skewered, and if I don't he'll get me anyway. Raiga contemplated, searching for any other options, but soon found none that would allow him to live long enough to win. Very well, if I lose I will at least lose by his blade. Bring it, Arashi. Raiga shouted right before Naruto did bring it. Kitsune Ise Ru, Kisyun Chum no Mai, Fox Cry Sword Style, Dance of the Fox Claw. Naruto shouted, delivering his attack. Time seemed to have stopped for the fighters. The shuriken and cage bushins Naruto had summoned disappeared. Raiga's dragon and armor fell as well, leaving only the two occupants breathing heavily. Raiga looked right into Naruto's eyes, before a large smirk crossed his lips. Not too bad, Arashi. He complimented before blood surged out of his wounds as he fell to the ground, as a pool of blood began to seep out of the 150 SS through his body. Naruto closed his eyes and bowed his head. You weren't that bad yourself, Raiga-san, he said forlornly, allowing a moment of silence for the man who had become his first K. A minute later Naruto opened his eyes, before falling to a knee while leaning on Shinku Kaijin for support as small electrical bolts jumped off his worn form. Although Naruto's attack had struck true, with each strike came several thousand volts of electricity from Raiga's armor jutsu. So for a time, the battle was based solely on the fighter's own will to win. Naruto had wanted to cry. He finally ked someone. He knew from Natsume's teachings that it was an aspect of being a shinobi that he'd have to face eventually. But it still didn't make it any easier to deal with when it finally happened. He turned his head towards the heavens when it suddenly began to lightly rain, as if the gods themselves cried for the final loss of innocence in his life. After a moment Naruto felt two soft arms wrap around his chest and a body press against his back. Immediately recognizing her scent, his tense body relaxed. You did well for your first real fight, Naruto-kun, Natsumi cooed to him, hoping to ease his pain slightly. Arigato Natsumi-chan, he retorted, thankful for her praise and comfort. She smirked at him, though he couldn't tell. You know that your idea was half-assed though, right? I could think of at least 5 other ways of defeating him without you having to throw yourself into both of his jutsu that could have very well killed you, had you not used your shuriken as a distraction. You're just damn lucky for your healing abilities and pain tolerance as a Hanyu. I knew while you were attacking you wanted to scream out in pain. So next time use your brain, you'll save yourself a lot of pain, and me a lot of worry. She scolded him as his sensei, but finished with a sad tone. Gomen Kyuubi sensei, I will think more clearly next time. He retorted, squeezing one of her hands that embraced him in a reassuring gesture. We should bury him before it rains harder, he questioned, only getting a nod against his back as a response. Naruto used a Doton jutsu to make a grave for Raiga and placed the man in the usual burial position with both his swords across his chest, before he said a few parting words and covered the makeshift grave. That night, the pair were rather quiet for most of the night after the fight. Natsumi knew Naruto was still dealing with the fact he ended a person's life, but was still impressed that he was so slay. Most people's first KS were hard on him mentally, usually breaking down crying, or other such things. When it was time to sleep Naruto finally spoke, though it was soft and low, so low that only Natsumi's demonic hearing could pick it up, not that there was anyone else to listen anyway. What now, sensei? Natsumi took a moment to look at Naruto, who was lying on his bed just staring at the ceiling. There is a rather isolated country that I want you to go to. Snow country. Not many shinobi of the 5 greater nations ever go there. So having Hyoten, ice, jutsu in your arsenal will be a good ace up your sleeve if you can find someone to teach you the basics. She answered. I see. Alright Kyuubi-sensei, when do you wish to leave? Tomorrow, after breakfast. Be ready though, Naruto. To get to the snow country we'll need to travel through fire country, and dangerously close to Konoha, so you need to keep your wits about you. It will also take nearly 3 weeks to get to our destination since we'll have to take a boat to get there. In the meantime you will continue your regimen as usual, but I will be teaching you more about Shinku Kaijin's power along the way. She summarized after flopping down on her own bed. I see, and I will Kyuubi-sensei. And what did you mean, Shinku Kaijin's power? He questioned, turning towards her only to deeply blush, and feel his pants strangely tighten while he unconsciously gazed at his unsuspecting sensei's beautifully curved body. I will explain that on the way to Snow Naruto-kun. But for now get some rest, you've earned it after today. She softly ordered with a hidden smile, easily feeling Naruto's burning gaze on her body but purposely ignored it, noting she liked the feeling of his eyes wandering every curve of her body. Wonder if I should sleep in just to screw with his mind. She mentally laughed as a scene of that situation popped into her head, before shaking her head free of the thought. Nor, rather screw him then screw with his mind. Plus I don't think he is quite mature enough, well other than that Kami-like body of his anyway. She concluded with a rosy blush from her perverted though truthful thoughts. Hi Natsumi-chan, sleep well, he said in an involuntarily deep, gruff, but soft tone, knocking her out of her thoughts. You too Naruto-kun. She responded in kind, her body heating up slightly at the tone of his voice sounding very inviting, and even worse since she knew he didn't mean it to come out like that. They both fell into a fast slumber from all of the day's excitement, neither knowing that their new destination held more danger and secrets than either of them imagined, and may force them to reveal the deepest feelings to one another because by the end of their stay there, they might not get another chance. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.